stupid rain. We can't do anything.
Well, I brought some books. We could read.
Hey, it hasn't come to that yet.
A spin-off is like a cover song. When it's good, it's a great tribute. But when it's bad, it's a karaoke nightmare that makes you cringe. We found 20 shows that are the absolute worst karaoke nightmares in TV history. They took perfect sitcoms and belted out a sour note. What many overlooked is that one of these disasters actually came from the most successful TV show of all time. 1. Joey from Friends.
Come on, boys. Come on out. There you go. All right.
Oh, look at the little birdies.
Everyone in the world knows the show Friends. It was a complete monster of a hit for 10 straight years. For a whole decade, it was the biggest show on television, pulling in an unbelievable 52 million people for its final episode. When it ended in 2004, fans all over the world were heartbroken. They had spent 10 years with these 6 people, and it felt like saying goodbye to their own best friends. The network, NBC, was not ready to let go of that golden goose. To put it mildly, they were desperate to keep the money train going. So they decided to spin off the one character who wasn't paired up with someone, Joey Tribbiani, played by Matt LeBlanc. The idea seemed simple enough on paper. Take Joey, the lovable, goofy, food-loving actor, and move him to Los Angeles to be with his sister Gina and his brainy nephew, Michael. The show would follow his adventures, trying to make it as a serious actor in Hollywood. But here's the kicker. Joey was never meant to be the main guy. He was the perfect, silly, and loyal side dish to the other 5 characters. The thing nobody tells you is that Joey's charm worked because he had smart characters like Chandler and Monica to bounce off of. When you put him all by himself, his main personality trait just seemed, well, kind of dumb. The new characters, including his sister, just didn't have that lightning-in-a-bottle chemistry that the original cast had. On Friends, Joey was sweet. On his own show, Joey, he suddenly seemed a little less charming and a lot more clueless. The show felt empty and hollow, like a pale copy of Friends. It lasted 2 seasons, but the second season was so unpopular and had such bad ratings that NBC pulled it from the air. Believe it or not, they didn't even show the final 8 episodes in the United States. It's a huge stain on the Friends legacy and proves that sometimes you just need to leave the coffee shop and not look back. But as bad as it was to see a great show get a lame follow-up, it's even worse when a spin-off is so bad it helps drag the original show down with it. 2. Joni Loves Chachi from Happy Days.
Ah, Chachi. Look at him. He's probably sitting there with his wife. He's probably been out pounding the sidewalks all morning, trying to find a decent job.
In the 1970s, Happy Days was the king of television. It was a sweet, funny, and nostalgic show about the Cunningham family in Milwaukee. And of course, it gave the world one of the coolest characters ever, Arthur Fonzarelli, the Fonz. As the show went on for years and years, new characters were added to keep things fresh. One of the most popular additions was Fonzie's younger cousin, Charles Chachi Arcola, played by Scott Baio. Chachi quickly became a massive teen heartthrob, and the show's writers started to focus more and more on his romance with Joni Cunningham, Richie's little sister. The two became a super couple for teen magazines, and producers thought this was ratings gold. They figured, why not give these 2 popular kids their own show? So Joni Loves Chachi was born in 1982. The new show followed the young couple as they moved to Chicago to start a rock band. What many overlooked is that Happy Days was a comfy, funny sitcom about family and friends. Joni Loves Chachi, on the other hand, was a musical, and a really, really cheesy one at that. Every episode, the 2 would sing sappy, original pop songs to each other. The plots were paper thin, and all the charm they had on Happy Days seemed to vanish. The show was a critical disaster. Believe it or not, it was so bad that it was canceled after just 17 episodes. But here's the real damage. After the show got the axe, the network forced both characters, Joni and Chachi, to come back to Happy Days. But the magic was totally gone. Their return felt forced, and it was a clear signal that the original show was out of ideas and running on fumes. Happy Days limped on for another season, but the Joni Loves Chachi failure marked the true beginning of the end for the Cunninghams and their friends. Giving a couple their own show is risky, but it's even crazier to give a spin-off to a character nobody even liked in the first place, especially the slimy ex-husband of a beloved barmaid. 3. The Tortellis from Cheers.
My earlier show's been canceled.
Canceled?
Oh, that's a shame. What happened?
Some little problem with the tickets. They didn't sell any.
Cheers is an all-time classic, and many people say it's one of the best-written sitcoms in history. It was a show about a Boston bar where everybody knows your name. One of its most iconic and beloved characters was the feisty, sharp-tongued waitress, Carla Tortelli. She had a whole bunch of kids and a complicated life. A big part of her backstory was her terrible ex-husband, Nick Tortelli. Nick, played by actor Dan Hedaya, was a sleazy, fast-talking lounge lizard who was always trying to scam Carla or the bar. He was funny in very small doses. He would show up at Cheers, be a total jerk, and then get tossed out by Sam or Coach. He was a great side character because you loved to hate him, but some executive somewhere watched this and thought, this guy, this awful, obnoxious guy, needs his own show. This led to the 1987 spin-off, The Tortellis. The show followed Nick and his new, ditzy wife Loretta as they moved to Las Vegas to start a new life. The entire show was just Nick being a loud, obnoxious, and unlikable creep to everyone around him. You see, the humor of Nick on Cheers was watching Carla, and the rest of the bar gang put him in his place. On his own show, there was no one to balance him out. It was just 22 minutes of pure, uncut obnoxiousness. Viewers at home hated it. To put it mildly, the show was a train wreck. It aired 13 episodes and was promptly canceled. The failure was so complete that the Cheers writers basically pretended it never happened. Nick and Loretta returned to Cheers a few more times as if their entire Vegas adventure was just a bad dream. It was an embarrassing misfire that thankfully didn't hurt the legacy of Cheers, but it stands as a perfect example of totally misunderstanding why a character is funny in the first place. But as big a mistake as the Tortellis was, it was nothing compared to the disaster that happened when producers tried to continue one of the most important and beloved TV shows of all time, after it already had the perfect ending. 4. After MASH from Mossy S. H. The finale of MASH in 1983 was not just a TV episode, it was a national event. It was, and still is, the most watched television broadcast in American history that isn't a Super Bowl. A staggering 125 million people tuned in to say goodbye to Hawkeye, BJ, and the entire 4077th. People held goodbye parties all across the country. It was the perfect, heartfelt, and tear-jerking ending to an 11-year journey. CBS executives saw that unbelievable number, 125 million viewers, and they just couldn't stand the idea of the money train stopping. So, in a move that felt very greedy, they rushed a spin-off onto the air just 6 months later. It was called After MASH. The show followed 3 of the original characters, Colonel Potter, Klinger, and Father Mulcahy. The story picked up right after the war, with all 3 of them now working at a veterans hospital back in the United States. But here's the kicker. The thing nobody tells you is that the entire point of MASH was the contrast of comedy and drama in a high-stakes life-or-death setting. The humor was dark because it was a way to cope. After MASH was just a regular, boring hospital sitcom. It took these beloved characters and stripped them of everything that made them interesting. Klinger, who was famous for wearing dresses and pulling wild stunts to get out of the Army, was now just a regular guy in a suit. It felt wrong. The show actually had a decent first season because so many fans tuned in out of loyalty, but they quickly realized it was terrible. By season 2, the ratings fell through the floor. It was canceled so fast, it became a national punchline. Time magazine called it one of the worst ideas in TV history. It was a cash grab that spit on the perfect legacy of its parent show. Trying to continue a drama is tough, but it's also a bad idea to take a show about 3 single roommates and spin off the grumpy, unfunny landlords. 5. The Ropers from Three's Company.
It's just a blob.
Oh, don't fool me. I'd recognize your mother anyplace.
Three's Company was a massive hit in the 70s and 80s. The show was all about the silly adventures of Jack, Janet, and Chrissy, 3 roommates living in Santa Monica. A huge part of the show's comedy came from their landlords, the Ropers. Stanley Roper was a cheap, grumpy, and suspicious landlord, and his wife Helen was always wanting a little more romance in her life. Their back-and-forth bickering was a highlight of the early seasons. The actors who played them, Norman Fell and Audra Lindley, were comedy pros. But here's the thing, they were side characters. Their job was to pop in, deliver a funny line about Jack, and then leave. The network, however, thought they were so popular that they deserved their own show. So in 1979, The Ropers was launched. The new show had Stanley and Helen sell their apartment building and move into a fancy new townhouse in a rich neighborhood. The main joke was that they were a working-class couple who didn't fit in with their snobby new neighbors. What many overlooked is that the Ropers' entire job on Three's Company was to react to the 3 young roommates. Without Jack, Janet, and Chrissy to bother, the Ropers were just a grumpy, bickering couple. The show was not very funny, and audiences didn't connect with it. It lasted for 2 seasons before it was canceled. But here's the part that really ruined things. When Norman Fell and Audra Lindley left Three's Company, they were replaced by a new landlord, Mr. Furley, played by Don Knotts. Mr. Furley was a huge hit, and Three's Company became even more popular. The original actors had left their hit show for a flop, and they couldn't come back. It was a bad deal for them and a spin-off nobody asked for. It's always a mistake to break up a winning team, but our next show made that mistake with one of the most popular characters from a groundbreaking show. 6. Checking In from the Jeffersons. We're moving on up. The Jeffersons was a hugely important and successful spin-off from All in the Family. It followed George and Wheezy Jefferson as they moved from Queens to a deluxe apartment in the sky. But a huge part of the show's humor came from their sharp-tongued, wisecracking maid, Florence Johnston. Florence, played by Marla Gibbs, was a fan favorite. She was lazy, she was sassy, and she was the only one who could put George Jefferson in his place. Florence was a key part of the show's chemistry. So, in 1981, after 7 seasons of The Jeffersons, the network decided to give Florence her own show. It was called Checking In. The story was that Florence left the Jeffersons to become the new executive housekeeper at a big, fancy hotel in New York City. You see, the magic of Florence was her relationship with George. It was a perfect comedy duo. He was her cheap, loud-mouthed boss, and she was the only one who wasn't scared of him. Their insults were a weekly highlight. When you take Florence and put her in a hotel with a bunch of new characters nobody knows, that magic is gone. She was now the one in charge, and it just wasn't as funny. The show was a massive, massive flop. To put it mildly, it was one of the biggest bombs of the season. It was canceled after only 4 episodes. Just 4. Because the show failed so quickly, Marla Gibbs was able to return to the Jeffersons almost immediately. The show explained her return by saying the hotel had burned down. Everyone just pretended the spin-off never happened, and Florence went right back to trading insults with George, right where she belonged. That was a close call, but the Jeffersons survived. Its parent show, All in the Family, wasn't always so lucky with its other spin-offs. 7. Gloria from All in the Family.
Live up here with us? You bet. Oh boy, come here.
All in the Family changed television forever. It was the #1 show in America for 5 straight years. It gave us the iconic Archie Bunker, his wife Edith, and their daughter Gloria, and her husband Michael Meathead Stevick. The show was famous for tackling heavy subjects. The show was so popular, it launched 2 blockbuster spin-offs, Maude and The Jeffersons. But the network wanted more. In 1978, the characters of Gloria and Meathead left the show, moving to California. A few years later, the producers decided to spin off Gloria in her own series. The show, simply called Gloria, premiered in 1982. The story was that Gloria and Michael had separated, and she was now a single mom working as an assistant for a veterinarian in upstate New York. The problem was, the character of Gloria Stevick was always a reactor. She was the loving daughter who reacted to her dad's nonsense, and the supportive wife who reacted to her husband's ideas. She was never the one driving the story. On her own, the character felt a bit lost. The show was a strange mix. It wasn't the sharp, biting comedy of All in the Family. It was a much softer, gentler, single mom sitcom. It felt generic. What many overlooked is that the All in the Family universe was known for being bold and groundbreaking. This show was the opposite. It was safe, quiet, and to be honest, pretty boring. It got decent ratings at first because it aired after Archie Bunker's Place, but audiences just didn't connect with this new version of Gloria. The network canceled it after 1 season. It was another failed attempt to capture that Bunker magic, proving that not every character is meant to be a star. But as weak as Gloria was, it wasn't the spin-off that did the most damage to the All in the Family legacy. That honor belongs to the show that replaced the original. 8. Archie Bunker's Place from All in the Family.
What do you mean by that, Miss White?
This one is controversial because Archie Bunker's Place was actually a successful show. It ran for 4 seasons and got good ratings. But for fans of the original All in the Family, this show is the one that truly ruined the legacy. Here's why. All in the Family was a perfect show. It was about 4 people in a house: Archie, Edith, Gloria, and Meathead. The show ended in 1979 when Gloria and Meathead moved away. It was a good time to end, but the network didn't want to. So they immediately relaunched the show with a new name, Archie Bunker's Place. The new show was no longer set in the house. It was set in the neighborhood bar, Kelsey's Saloon, which Archie bought. The show's focus shifted from family drama to the wacky characters at the bar. It was basically a different, less important show. But the real damage? The part that fans will never forgive happened in the 2nd season. The actress who played Edith Bunker, Jean Stapleton, wanted to leave the show. She felt she had done everything she could with the character. So the producers made a decision. Between seasons, they had Edith pass on from a stroke. The season premiere dealt with Archie's grief. While that episode was powerful, the rest of the series felt empty. All in the Family was, at its heart, a love story between Archie and his dingbat Edith. She was the soul of the show. Running the show for 3 more years without her felt wrong. It turned Archie from a complex family man into a sad widower running a bar. It tarnished the memory of the original, all for the sake of keeping the show on the air a few more years. Losing a main character is heartbreaking. But our next show tried to do a spin-off by taking a happy, goofy family and turning them into something dark and depressing. 9. The Bradys from the Brady Bunch.
All I want to say is, oh, Tiger!
Here's a story of a show that should have been left alone. The Brady Bunch was a sweet, colorful, and completely unrealistic sitcom about a lovely lady and a man named Brady. It was pure, cheesy, feel-good fun. After the original show ended, there were a bunch of spin-offs, like the truly bizarre Brady Bunch Hour variety show, but the worst one, the one that truly ruined the Brady name, came in 1990. It was called The Bradys. This was not a sitcom. The network decided to bring the entire original cast back, but this time as a one-hour drama. This was a terrible, terrible idea. All the characters you loved were now sad and had serious problems. Bobby Brady was in a wheelchair after a racing accident. Peter was a womanizer. Jan and her husband were having trouble conceiving. And the biggest what were they thinking moment. Cindy was having a secret relationship with her boss, who was Greg Brady's boss. It was all very weird and soapy. But the most shocking storyline was for Mike Brady, the happy-go-lucky dad. He left his architecture job to become a politician and then got trapped in a collapsed building. To put it mildly, this was not the Brady Bunch anyone remembered or wanted. You see, the entire appeal of the Bradys was their simple, happy world where every problem was solved in 30 minutes with a gentle family talk. Turning it into a dark, gritty drama was a complete misunderstanding of what made the show work. Fans were horrified. The show was often called Brady drama by critics, and it was canceled after only 6 episodes. It was a bizarre and depressing end to America's favorite family. A family drama is one thing, but our next show took a cranky old detective from a beloved sitcom and gave him a family show. And it was just as cranky. 10. Fish, from Barney Miller.
Felt pretty nice, sitting behind that wheel.
Barney Miller was one of the best sitcoms of the 70s and 80s. It was a workplace comedy set almost entirely in the squad room of the 12th Precinct in New York City. The comedy came from the amazing cast of quirky, funny detectives. One of the most popular was Detective Phil Fish, played by the amazing Abe Vigoda. Fish was the old, grumpy, and perpetually tired detective who was always complaining about his health and his wife. He was hilarious in the context of the squad room, shuffling around, complaining, and ignoring the criminals. He was a fan favorite. So the network decided to spin him off. The show was called Fish. It took the detective, who was now retired, and had him and his wife Bernice become foster parents to 5 rowdy kids. The problem? The show was just depressing. Fish was grumpy in a funny way on Barney Miller. On his own show, surrounded by troubled kids, he just seemed mean. The show's tone was all over the place. It wasn't funny enough to be a comedy, and it wasn't serious enough to be a drama. What many overlooked is that Fish's humor came from his job. He was a cop who was too old and tired to care. When you take that away, you're just left with a grumpy old man. The show lasted for 2 seasons, but it was not well liked. It's a classic example of taking a character out of the one environment where they work and expecting them to be just as funny somewhere else. It was a total misfire. Taking a character out of their element is a huge risk, but it's an even bigger risk to try and continue a magical show without the magic. 11. Tabitha from Bewitched.
Small man, and I think it's just about time you realized it.
Bewitched was a magical hit from the 1960s. It was all about a powerful witch, Samantha, who marries a mortal man, Darren, and tries to live a normal suburban life. In the show, Samantha and Darren have 2 children. The first was their daughter, Tabitha, who also had magical powers. The show was a classic. Years later, in 1977, the network decided to cash in on that nostalgia by creating a spin-off called Tabitha. The new show followed a grown-up Tabitha, now in her 20s and working at a television station in Los Angeles. She was still a witch, and she was still trying to balance her magic with her normal life, just like her mom. Sounds like a good idea, right? Well, it was a total disaster. The main problem was the actress. The new Tabitha was played by Lisa Hartman, who just didn't have the same charm as Elizabeth Montgomery, the original Samantha. The show felt like a cheap imitation, but the biggest insult to fans was that the show completely ignored the Bewitched history. On the original show, Tabitha had a little brother named Adam, who was also a warlock. On the Tabitha spin-off, this brother did not exist. He was completely erased from history. The show also brought back the character of Paul Lynde, who played Uncle Arthur, but he wasn't playing Uncle Arthur. He was playing a new, similar character. It was all very confusing and sloppy. Fans of the original Bewitched hated it. It felt like a low-budget copy that didn't respect the original story. The show was canceled after just one season, proving that you can't just recreate magic, especially when you forget half the family. Ignoring a show's history is a bad move. But our next spin-off took a bumbling, lovable character and made him the star. And it was a mess. 12. Enos from The Dukes of Hazzard. The Dukes of Hazzard was a simple, fun show. It was all about two good old boys, Bo and Luke Duke, driving their car, the General Lee, and avoiding the crooked boss hog and the clumsy Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane. It was a massive hit. One of the show's most beloved side characters was Deputy Enos Strait. Enos was the opposite of the corrupt boss hog. He was a sweet, honest, and completely naive deputy who had a huge crush on Daisy Duke. He was famous for his catchphrase, "Possum on a gumbush." He was a pure-hearted, simple guy. Because he was so popular, CBS decided to give him his own show in 1980. The spin-off, simply called Enos, moved the character from rural Hazard County to the giant, gritty city of Los Angeles. He was now a rookie officer with the LAPD, paired with a tough, street-smart partner. Do you see the problem? The show was the Beverly Hillbillies with a police badge. The entire joke was, haha, look at this simple country boy in the big city. Every single episode was about Enos being too nice, too trusting, and too country for LA. He would try to stop crime by being polite. It got old very, very fast. The thing nobody tells you is that Enos was great as a side character in Hazard. He was the one bit of honesty in a sea of corruption. When you make him the main character, his simplicity just isn't that interesting. The show was a critical and ratings failure. It was canceled after 18 episodes, and just like Joni and Chachi, Enos had to return to Hazard County with his tail between his legs, his LA adventure quickly forgotten. It's clear that not every side character deserves a show, and our next two entries prove that by trying not once, but twice to spin off a show about a terrible family. 13. Top of the Heap from Married with Children.
Well, he's kind of cute. Does that young man work here?
Not yet, but he will in 5 minutes.
Married with Children was the anti-family sitcom of the 80s and 90s. It was rude, it was crude, and it was hilarious. The show was about the miserable Bundy family. But there were other characters in their world, like their neighbors, the Rhodes. In 1991, the show's creators decided to try a spin-off. They did it in a special way called a backdoor pilot. They aired an episode of Married with Children that was really just the first episode of a new show. It was called Top of the Heap. The show focused on a new character named Charlie Verducci and his dim-witted son, Vinny. They were a pair of low-class con artists trying to scam their way into high society. The connection to the Bundys? Al Bundy's friend, Charlie, was the main character. The pilot episode even had Al and Peg show up. The show was basically Married, with children, but without any of the charm. It was just mean and unfunny. The network actually picked it up and aired 6 more episodes. But audiences didn't care. The show was quickly canceled. It was a total failure. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end there. The network, for some reason, believed in the son character, Vinny. Taking a failed spin-off and trying to spin it off again sounds like a recipe for disaster. And it was. 14. Vinny and Bobby, from Married with Children.
Generally being a hunky meathead.
I just don't fit in here. I mean, I'm out of my ointment.
You'd think the failure of Top of the Heap would be the end of it. But no, the network executives liked the actor who played the dumb son, Vinny. That actor was a very young Matt LeBlanc, years before he would become Joey on Friends. So they retooled the show. They got rid of the dad character and gave Vinny a new roommate named Bobby. The new show was called Vinny and Bobby. It premiered in 1992, just a few months after Top of the Heap was canceled. This was a spin-off of a spin-off. The show followed Vinny and his new, smarter roommate as they tried to get jobs and meet women. It was a basic, generic, two single guys sitcom. All the edgy, rude humor from the Married with Children universe was completely gone. It was safe, it was bland, and it was boring. This show failed even faster than the first one. It was canceled after only 7 episodes. It's a bizarre footnote in TV history. The Married with Children creators tried twice to launch a new show and failed both times. The only good thing to come out of it was that it kept Matt LeBlanc in the industry long enough to eventually land his life-changing role on Friends. But as a spin-off, it was a total embarrassment.